Now, Michael Cohen is talking about how he went about getting the $130,000. He said he did it around his wife's back. He didn't want her to find out.
He didn't want his wife to know, so he went to get this home equity loan as opposed to writing a check from his personal bank account. She was in charge of those personal bank accounts. She would know if he was writing a check for $130,000. He wasn't about to tell her why.
Exactly. He wanted to keep that from his wife. Never seen a witness who's lied to Congress, who's lied in court, who's lied to the IRS, who's lied to the Southern District of New York, who lied to his banker. The entire prosecution witness team has been lied to.
In Trump's more ahead than he's ever been. Fewer people think January 6th was any kind of what it was, as an assault on the temple of democracy, the Constitution. I don't know what you want to say. It's going the wrong way. It's not working. Everything that we're throwing is spaghetti at a wall, and none of it is sticking, me included.
James Carville with a fun, colorful shirt, expressing his displeasure at the fact that Democratic voters and voters in general don't seem to be reacting or responding well to some of the campaigning coming from President Joe Biden. They're throwing everything they can at it, nothing will stick. And he's pretty upset about it. I mean, the polling has shown Donald Trump and Biden neck and neck. We have some newer polling coming from the New York Times showing that Biden's not doing well in swing states, and this isn't the first poll that indicates that. And I also want to just quickly note that the video that we're watching is actually not new. It's from months ago, but it was basically going viral over the weekend on social media. It was resurfaced, reshared, and I think what Carville says here is just so fascinating because it shows you the disconnect among the Democratic strategists of yesteryear versus where voters' hearts and minds are today. So let's look at the next clip, which gives you some more context into his argument, and then we'll discuss.
It's hard when you start in your 80th year, and you like anybody else, I have an opinion of myself, and the opinion I've come to is I don't matter. It doesn't matter. You can prepare, you can be on TV, or you can write pieces, you can have a YouTube channel, you can have a podcast, and nothing. And, we gotta try to think of something different, because what we're doing is really, really not working.
I'm gonna open this up to Wosny Lambre, because I am curious, Woz, what you have to say about James Carville saying, I don't matter. He's realizing that his political strategizing isn't really working for the Democratic Party anymore.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
Look, this isn't 1996 where you could just go on Meet the Press twice a month, especially during an election year. You could go on 2020, these few little media outlets, you could do your interview with the Washington Post and the New York Times and kind of keep it pushing, right? Like the media landscape has expanded. Thankfully, there's places like TYT now where people get their news from, and all kinds of different independent media on both the left or right. Like these establishment people don't have a chokehold on the media structure. But what I would say to James Carville, it's like, bro, Joe Biden is the actual president. His presidency should be making the case for itself. Like the idea, like James Carville should be the one, like he should have the influence of telling people whether they like Joe Biden or not. It's like, bro, people are deciding if he should stay in the actual job that he's doing right now. It's his job record that is being critiqued. It's not a messaging problem. It's not a PR problem. It's the job that he's doing that is leaving people dissatisfied. So like, all of this hemming and hawing, young people don't get it. No, young people don't like what he's doing. So why don't you, like when he's saying it's not working, yeah, do something different. It's not about a rhetorical trick that you can now try. Do something different in your position as the leader of the freaking free world.
Yeah, there's this interesting similarity between Obama and Biden when it comes to their messaging on the economy. Now, but I mean, look, Obama easily won re-election, and I think his charisma helped win re-election. With Biden, I mean, the charisma is a little bit of a problem, okay? Not a lot of riz in the Biden White House. However, the similarity that they shared was the fact that they both like to go around the country bragging about what they've accomplished for the economy. And I specifically remember when Obama was speaking to voters in the middle of the country, bragging about how much he helped improve the economy from the 2008 economic recession and housing market crash. And he was speaking specifically in a part of a country that had used to have a robust manufacturing sector, and all these people had lost their jobs, and they're listening to Obama brag about the economy. And so I think there's this disconnect between presidents who like to look at things at a macro level, when in reality, on a micro level, there are a lot of Americans who don't feel the economy is doing great things for them. They don't feel that they're thriving in this economy of high interest rates, inflation when it comes to housing, inflation when it comes to groceries, their wages and salaries not keeping up with inflation. Like all of these things obviously negatively impact the perception voters have of the person who's currently in charge, and that person is Joe Biden. And what also drives me crazy, Waz, is people tell Biden what they want from him. It's not like they're hiding the ball. When it comes to young voters, for months now, they're like, please do something to rein in Israel. They're killing too many innocent civilians. We don't like it. And Biden was unwilling to do a damn thing until just very recently with Rafah. He's like, okay, maybe I withhold or just halt the dumb bombs that I was planning on sending to Israel. But eventually he's gonna send the bombs, like I have no doubt, right? And so that kind of unwillingness to listen to your voters, to your base, is gonna lead to consequences. It just is. And I think that's what's happening now. The chickens have come home to roost, Biden.
And I love how the Dems love to present themselves as the policy people. We're the policy wonks. We're about issues. We're about blah, 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 blah. And again, he can't effectively make the case that he's helping people with the rent. If you want to go out and get a car, it's expensive as hell. Gas is expensive as hell. You mentioned the grocery, like the everyday thing that normal people care about, that they're dealing with on a day-to-day. Biden doesn't speak to. And the other part of it, this whole, Carville's whole thing is that Trump is the boogeyman. Trump is gonna, it's gonna be the worst thing ever. It's like, bro, we lived through 4 years of Donald Trump's presidency and it was mostly fine. That's what people felt. Whatever, we don't think he should have been the president, but the sky did not fall. So you can't make this case to people. That can't be the argument you're making. And then, you did that the first time. This idea that Biden is gonna be the steady hand at the wheel and all of that. And now you've had your turn and nobody's impressed by it. That's what they ultimately have to face. Nobody's impressed by the job that Joe Biden has ultimately done. So the case that, Donald Trump is horrible, it's like, all right, nobody's scared of that. We lived through it, we got through it, everybody was mostly fine for the most part. Obviously, Trump had his screw ups and he was terrible.
Yep.
But if you lived through it, you don't feel like this is some impossible mountain to climb, a Trump presidency. And then again, while you're living through Joe Biden, it doesn't feel much better.
That's such a great point. And I've said that myself, and every time I do, I feel guilty saying my life has not improved under Biden. And I say it because if I feel it, that means there's a lot of voters in the country who feel the same way. And so when they turn to the Democrats during their campaigning to see what the messaging is, well, the messaging is, the other guy is the boogeyman. And I think most Americans are fatigued from hearing about the threat to democracy. You get what I'm saying? Hearing it over and over and over again, repeating it over and over again, I think leads to that message losing its power. And I think there are some voters who might even feel that it's a little bit of a boy who cried wolf type situation, because every election cycle we keep hearing about how, oh, this is the most consequential presidential election in American history. And it's like, is that gonna be the case in every presidential election moving forward? Come on. Now, I mentioned the polling and I wanted to give you the details on that because the New York Times has released the results of their latest poll, and it shows that Biden is in fact struggling in 5 of the 6 key battleground states. The new polls released Monday morning found Trump leading Biden among likely voters in a head-to-head matchup in Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Georgia, with all but the latter 2 results within the margin of error. Biden led narrowly among likely voters in Michigan, which was kind of surprising, but that was also within the margin of error. And I say that's surprising because of the fact that Michigan is one of those swing states that was vulnerable for a vulnerability for Biden, given the large Arab American and Muslim American community there. They are, of course, very unhappy with how Biden has shown unwavering support for Israel, regardless of how many civilians have been killed in Gaza. And the polling also found Trump making significant improvements among young voters and voters of color compared to 2020, with as many voters between ages 18 and 29 saying that they would support the former president as back Biden. Now, Hispanic voters were also split roughly equally, while around 20% of black voters across the 6 states indicated support for Trump. And we've talked about this before, Waz. I mean, Trump has, it's crazy because while he is being accused of being the country's top racist, the worst person for minorities, he has managed to consistently increase his support among black voters, Hispanic voters, young voters. And I understand why Carville is frustrated. He's like, we've been fear-mongering about this guy endlessly and it's not working. Like, what the hell? Do these voters expect us to deliver for them? Is that what they're expecting us to do?
Yeah, it's this identitarian sort of belief about voters that they're like, oh, I'm a Hispanic or Latino or Latinx or whatever first, right? Like, I don't think that's how voters, every single voter anyway, conceives of themselves. And the idea that a lot of these people feel like Biden's agenda doesn't comport with their own views, I'm not surprised by that. And also, again, even the Biden wins, right? Like the infrastructure bill. Why? Joe Biden should be taking a picture with a shovel every single freaking day, reminding Americans that he's putting people to work, that he's rebuilding the country, et cetera, et cetera. He's just not doing that. It's just all about, oh, you guys are being brainwashed about the economy, and that stuff about your rents and all that other stuff is lies. Just listen to what Joe Biden tells you. It's great, no matter what the actual material reality is for each individual voter. And then again, like on the legitimate accomplishments, he doesn't even campaign on it. So yeah. I don't understand this tact at all. Like, I get it. A lot of their most precious voters, these suburban, college educated types, they are definitely repulsed by Trump. They find him, erratic and unsteady and unstable, and they don't like that. And we all know that's the Democrats' favorite voter. Mm-hmm. However, everybody else doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, it's a great point. And to your point about Biden delivery, like he did deliver on some things, the transportation department passing a new rule that ensures that you get an automatic refund when your flight is severely delayed. I know that sounds like such a small specific thing, but it's actually a pretty big deal considering how much airline companies had been screwing over American travelers, right? So it might be a small thing, but it's easy to understand. It's gonna improve people's lives. Campaign on that. Over the weekend, Donald Trump was campaigning in New Jersey, it's a Democratic stronghold, right? And he's managed to draw in a massive crowd of people. There was a local official there who spoke to the Associated Press and said somewhere between 80 to 100,000 people showed up to that rally. Biden was vacationing over the weekend. And look, I'm not saying this because I'm like, ooh, that's my boy Donald Trump. I'm saying it because, guys, if you're a Democratic voter and you're worried, A, you should be worried. B, don't get mad at me. Get mad at the Democrats for, again, running an awful campaign. You know, it's the same thing that happened in 2016. People got mad at us for reporting what was happening during the election as Hillary Clinton was squandering her opportunity with terrible campaigning as a terrible candidate. Maybe get mad at the terrible candidate and the Democratic Party for propping up the terrible candidate instead of getting mad at the reporters or the journalists or the the hosts that are relaying the information about what's actually happening. I don't want people to be surprised about what happens on election day, okay? And if Trump is able to garner that kind of crowd in New Jersey while Joe Biden is barely running a campaign at all, yeah, there's cause for concern, to say the least.